we have 7 out of the 9 artists here. I will mention the artworks of the other 2 who aren't here as well. And then we're going to open up for questions with everybody and even a roundtable type discussion between artists themselves. So I will start off. In that little video you saw, the first piece that you saw was by Tim Eaton. Tim, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Great. That is a remarkable canvas and a wonderful way to begin the show. You walk in and there is this very large canvas, and it's really, really evocative. Your technique when it comes to the clouds, particularly, talk to me a little bit about that because they're spectacular. The sun coming through the clouds and everything, that portion of the painting, it's a wonderful painting overall, but that particular portion of it was what really gripped me.
I do get a lot of comments about my clouds and my construction of clouds. Um, it's hard to say. In fact, this is something that comes deeply from within. I do not copy any photographs or any references. There's no such thing near my easel. I simply know what I've seen, feel it from within, and create. So that allows for an awful lot of liberty in how the whole construct comes together. Um, of course, I've been influenced by a lot of observation over the years. I've traveled around the world and I've done watercolors, plein air, for many, many years. And at this point in my career, I am pretty much now focused on on studio work, because I'm tired of just chasing light and chasing um, swatting bugs, etc. So I have pretty much just come to the conclusion that it's a very liberating feeling to simply create from my memory and from my imagination. So those clouds are born out of just years and years of observation of how clouds interact and how sunlight comes through them. And it's an interpretation that leaves some room also for the viewer to come up with their own sentiments about it and their own memories.
Uh, Perfect. It's astonishing to me how much of the canvas is taken up by sky. If one thinks back to the Hudson River School and everything, it's almost always enclosed in. You've got cliffs and mountains coming up the sides and only a little bit of sky. Yours is this enormous sky with the landscape and the waterscape below, and just beautifully done. Really
Thank you.
beautiful. And you don't have something sitting on your easel to look at. That, as having been an artist's assistant and a model, to see that someone's coming that just from their memory is really kind of astonishing.
Well, to respond to it, again, I like to emphasize the idea of it's very liberating. I see a lot of artists using reference and trying to interpret something that's already been rendered. And usually those interpretations come from a two-dimensional image or impression. And I find that if I'm doing it from my heart, from my soul, from my spirit, memory, imagination, that it just really evokes something that's much more um, sensitive, I suppose is the right word. There is a quote actually that I will read that really kind of encapsulates what I'm referring to. If you'll just give me one moment. Training the visual memory. It is all very well to copy what you see. It is much better to draw what you only see in memory. There is a transformation during which the imagination works in conjunction with the memory. You only put down what made an impression on you, that is to say, the essential. Then your memory and your invention are freed from the dominating influence of nature. That is why images made by a person with a trained memory are almost always remarkable works. Uh, this was something that I discovered referenced in a book that my teacher, when I was coming up as an artist, gave to me, and it's a quote by none other than Degas. And so this has sort of been my touchstone going through my later years of development in art, and I stick to it. It's served me very well.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next artist, and you can mute now, and I'll tell when all the artists should unmute. I'm moving on to Dara Kane at this point.
Thank you.
If you can unmute your mic and come forward. Dara Kane has a series of wonderful pieces that are abstract, but considering this is supposed to be about seasons and the changing of seasons, seasonality, it was really interesting from my perspective. Looking in at this, I see these white canvases with black and gray on them, and then slowly you've got greens and blues starting to arise in them. Um, for me, that was as if I was looking at a winter landscape as spring starts to suddenly appear. Um, Dara, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. In fact,
Okay.
that's one of the canvases that is behind you. Um, very impressed. That got me in the heart of, oh, yes, this is spring awakening because I need it so badly right now. I don't know how the rest of us are all feeling, but this one's gone on very, very long. Tell me a little about your process.
Thank you. I would love to. I was inspired from a trip to Amsterdam last winter during the New Year week, and I was really inspired by the nature that was there and how even in the darkest of winter, that there were still some green shoots on the branches there, and that nature is so resilient and there's so much hope in nature and its renewal. That even in that raw, dark coldness, it was just lying on the surface, waiting to come back. And I was deeply inspired. And although I am not a fan of the winter at all, I grew to love the winter and appreciate the winter for the time that it's a resting time and that nature will return. And these canvases were inspired by that. And I hope that the the fact that it has less color um, communicates that winter feel,
It
yet
certainly
you
does.
can see glimpses of it emerging out of the canvas. And I'm a collage artist. I have been working a lot with mark making, and these collages were made using mark making on tissue. And that too itself is something that you don't really see. And it's a very once it's on the canvas, it sort of it's translucent, it disappears into it, and I love that factor. It almost became like a painting to me, and I worked really hard to get texture and movement and pattern from paper, which is can be a tricky medium to work with and doesn't lend itself to that always. So those were my challenges, and I felt that I was really successful in getting that life into the canvas.
I tend to agree. It certainly spoke to me of the fallowness of winter and new life springing through it. I spent a certain amount of time looking at your canvases from the side and everything because your layering is so beautifully done and it's so thin. Um, that
And
must
there
be a challenge.
and there was pre-printed material underneath and other layers. So it was a process of building up over time. And yeah, I'm really proud of that.
You should be. Bravo. An excellent, excellent portion of the show. I thank you. You can mute, and I'm going to move along to Ms. Gordon at this point.
John,
Um, are
John,
you there?
John.
Or is this? Yes.
Hi. So there's a question here, but it's for all of the artists. So do you want to wait for that
Yeah,
until?
if we could.
Okay, we'll
That
wait
way,
on
because
that.
I'm going to have them all open up their mics at that point, so it's more of a round table.
Gotcha.
I just want to get
Okay,
through introing each of the artists.
sure.
So is Ms. Gordon here? Is she part of the talk? Is she in tonight? Because otherwise, I can just chat about her works, which are quite good. Um, very representational oils. Much of looking like it's the Hudson River Valley. Very much the in placeness of our area around here. There's very distinct Hudson, Westchester sort of feel to it. Um, Beautifully done. She's got a couple of canvases. One of them is the autumn crops, and the other one is farm field in winter. Again, that feeling of fallowness of it's the coldest, darkest time of year, and yet life will be springing forth again soon. Very, very nice work on her part. Uh, Richard, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Coico?
Coico, yes.
Oh, I got it right. Good.
You did.
Okay. Chatting with the sky.
Yes.
Um, that really hit me. Some of your vibrant blues really got me there. The sun rising over the water in
Yes.
Providence. Um, you work in encaustics. I
Yes.
love encaustic. What drew you to that particular form?
I took a course, a workshop actually, about 14 years ago. It was sponsored by the Crotona Museum of Art. And the reason I was drawn to this was that the little blurb that described the course said, "You will learn to paint with fire." And I was very intrigued by that statement. I thought, how on earth do you paint with fire? My background is not in art, so I was new to this journey, and I took the course, a workshop of several weeks, and then I moved on from there. I was seduced by what I learned. I moved on and I found a mentor in Seattle who's a very accomplished encaustic artist, and I worked with her for several years to refine my methods, learn a whole bunch of different modalities using the medium, which is made with beeswax. I actually have a little bit here. This is the beeswax that I use, and it's combined with Damar resin. So this is this resin, and then finally it's combined with pigments if you choose. But when you make the medium by itself, you end up with blocks of medium that you then can melt and then add pigments to make various colors. So that's how I got started, and I've been practicing this craft now since then, and I'm absolutely in love with this medium.
You should be. It's been a favorite of mine since I was reviewing art openings in Provincetown all the way back in the 90s. Anytime I came across an artist who was accomplished at encaustics, it always gripped me because it's so visceral. There is a three-dimensionality to
Yes,
encaustics that few other visual forms have on the canvas. And it hits me emotionally more than so many others. And yours did as well. As I pointed out, Providence, that particular, um, in my head, I'm hearing "Here Comes the Sun" from the Beatles. Uh,
yes, yes. Well,
Beautifully done.
thank you, thank you. Providence is a site where the International Encaustic Retreat is held, and I've attended two of those, and again learned from many of my colleagues in encaustics. The beauty and the versatility of this medium. It's a wonderful thing to work with if you have enough courage. I say that because as I said, I did learn to paint with fire, and I use a blowtorch. And
Wow.
that's how I get and each piece is about 40 layers. Layer after layer has to be fused, and I fuse with a torch.
Do you find yourself covered with wax at
Oh
times?
yes. Oh yes, routinely I'm covered with wax. My studio, which fortunately is not part of the living environment in my house, but it's got wax everywhere. So yes, wax, and when one works with this medium, you have to have a hood that vents any fumes, which I have. And so,
Oh, yeah.
but the wax it's a living medium in many ways. I cherish the bees that give us this wonderful medium, and I've learned a lot about bees in
I'll
this
bet.
period I have. Yes.
Thank you very much again. I loved your work. It
Thank
really
you so much.
caught me emotionally.
Thank you.
Is Courtney Allen Rossy with us? No, I think she is not. Okay, so those paintings were four oils on canvas, very dreamlike in form. Uh, they evoke a lot of botanicals. There's one that looks very, very much like irises. Um, as someone who always appreciates a beautiful garden, um, I found her work to be very, very evocative of a walk through a garden of the spring that's coming and the change of season that's coming. I'm sorry because I wanted to ask her a little bit about uh, how she made those paintings. They almost look as if they've come from bubbles. There's a very fluid and water type feel to them, even though they're oils on canvas. They are not watercolors. Um, but for those of you who haven't gone to the show, go see them. Go see all of the works that we've talked about so far. And Ilse Gordon would be next. Ilse, are you with us? Or is it Ilse? Okay. She does Hudson and Hudson River Valley type paintings. That's right. She had one earlier in the show. That's why I discussed her earlier. Okay, so now Chad Crume, could you unmute?
Yes, hi.
How are you?
Good,
You
good.
love trees.
I do like dreams. Yeah, it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly.
Um, the diptych that you have behind you, really well done. I also love the fact that you did not have them two matching in size canvases side by side, but that you actually brought it out into it's actually shaped like the state of New York. That just occurred to me right now. But very, very evocative of field on a hill, the river in the background. What I liked about some of these this diptych is absolutely wonderful, but I also found your vertical lines uh, with your trees make such a statement. And one of the pieces, let me see if I have the title written down. Tree glyphs on slope. With the light coming from the side and the verticals, there's a very geometric feel to what's a very organic style of painting. Um, is that purposeful that we have so many straight lines up and down, or
It's an artifact of what I was witnessing or saw. Um, and I was attracted to it. Part of why I zeroed in on that particular scene was, the name of it might be a little bit mysterious to some people, tree glyphs. I have a bit of a background in graphic design and typeface design.
mm-hmm.
And so that one in particular, when I was looking at it, I felt like all of those verticals, along with a couple of diagonals of fallen trees in there, were very glyph-like. They looked like they were characters of type,
Well,
and they could be read that way across the slope,
like
like the slope
petroglyphs,
was a piece of paper.
right? Um, the old cuneiformic writing
Yeah,
that the Norse people did.
yeah,
Um,
very
it
runic
very much
looking.
evokes
Yeah.
that. So I was curious as to whether that was intentional or that was something that was found while painting. Um, but I did notice you do have an incredible sense of verticality in many of your works. What else did
That's
I want
interesting.
to
I'm
ask?
gonna have to take that back and think about it.
Okay. I think vertical is an uplifting type of thing. Trees, you
Yeah, sure.
find the beauty in them in the winter when so many people prefer the summer or, fully leafed out trees. you find the beauty in the starkness, and I really appreciated that.
Good. I'm glad you did. I heard you said you're really tired of this particular winter. I've found that I am very lucky to have I just can't get enough of most seasons. Every time a season is changing, I'm kind of a little sad to see it go, looking forward to the next one coming. And winter, and this particular winter, I absolutely loved it. I couldn't get
Good.
enough of
I
it.
mean, I'm not normally a moaner. I like winter. I like all 4 seasons. That's why I still live here.
Yeah,
But
right.
this one was just a little too long, a few too
Yeah.
many gray days that haven't changed anything.
And
And
10-degree days, those sort of
yeah,
they can be
and
harsh.
and piles of black frozen snow that aren't going to melt until July. But I did want to discuss that vertical lines thing, and so it was merely something that I was seeing in there. It wasn't necessarily an intentional place to go, but I had to admit that one really, by you saying glyphs in the title, I immediately went to cuneiform writing and the writing of ruins by the Celtic people and the Norsemen. I really
That's
enjoy your work.
that's great to hear, actually. I haven't actually had anyone key into the title, the glyphs on it, so it's nice.
Good. I'm a nerd. I can't help it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have coming up next Nanxi. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Ms. Yang, oils. This is a fascinating series of paintings that she does. If you go back and look through the video that was presented, or if you just even go to the website for the art gallery at Rockefeller State Preserve, she does her paintings. They're landscapes, but they're landscapes seen through a window. And you can see the reflection on the glass between the artist and the landscape that she is painting. It's fascinating. I really was hoping she was going to be here tonight because I really wanted to get into her head as to how that style of hers developed. What brought that out of her? Was she a shut-in for a long time where she could never get outside and everything had to be observed through glass? I would really, really love to find that out. They are very interesting canvases. They're very pretty canvases. Again, if you go back through the videos, everybody, take a look at these and realize, one of them is definitely raindrops on the glass, sort of distorting what the landscape is behind. Another is a clear sunny day where there's a full reflection of the building that she's inside the glass. Very interesting. A mindset I would have loved to have questioned about a little bit more. But do take a look at those. There's, what is it? To Everyone, to You is one of them, and Ode to a Watch in the Night. Very evocative titles as well. Okay, let's move on to my old pal, Dan Lukens. Dan, unmute, please.
I'm unmuted.
Very good. Dan, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And I do love the fact that I can identify almost every spot in your paintings. And when I came to Tallman, that one really caught me right in the heart. That is so very evocative of that place. I have one of your Piermont ones in my kitchen, a print of. And you do very much seem to tie emotionally to a place. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think everyone in Rockland County, I think, is obsessed with Edward Hopper, and I certainly am. And I think what I find remarkable about his work is he speaks to a specific time and place, and it's not our time; it's a time in the past. And so it's deliberate that I try to find places that people are familiar with. A mentor of mine said to me, paint something unreal, but convince me that it's real. And so I always paint with some kind of reference because I want to make that connection with the viewer. Of late, it's almost always plein air. And the thing about plein air is, you say, well, you paint what you see, but you do and you don't, because perception when you're outside, like what you see far away, what you see nearby, it's not like a photograph. It doesn't adjust the light for you. When you look far away, you see the light far away. When you look nearby, but you don't get the whole thing. It doesn't work that way. And so, where the interpretation comes in is you start painting outside, and then it's a process. You say, like, well, where am I? What am I doing? And then you start painting, and then you try to connect with what you actually see. But by the time you're finishing the painting, you're not outside anymore. You're not looking at a picture. You're just painting it becomes the piece. And so, I mean, that's pretty much my process. So I'll just try to move. I mean, I think it's hard for people to, if you see in the back of my shot, the two little pieces are pieces I painted outside, and the larger piece is a studio piece. But those pieces are almost always from something I saw outside, references I took, and then I like to reconstruct them. Another thing I do is I sometimes put humans in the picture or something, and I'll adjust to what I see as it changes. And what I used to do is I'd try to paint them in, but now more and more I'll paint a separate piece from the other things that I see. I also take pictures and try to chronicle the light as it changes through the day if I'm out. And then usually, I'll paint a small piece, and then that'll take 4 hours or something, and then I'll either do a studio piece for the larger pieces, or that'll be it. But it's mostly about, for me, it's the notion of practice makes perfect. In the season, I'll paint 4 or 5 paintings a week, and I do probably 12 hours a week of figure drawing. So it's all about. I'm a big one for. I'm almost like an athlete. I think I have to work out all the time. So. But what I endeavor to do is try to find that connection with the audience, that hopefully they'll see something a place they've been, something that's meaningful to them, and try to make the connection that way with the viewer.
You're painting at the Look. 2 questions on that one. Is that the lookout on the Palisades Parkway with the stone walls and the river
yes, that
down
is.
and below?
That's State Line Lookout.
Thought so. Okay. And is that a self-portrait in there, or was that another artist who was painting?
No, that's my. Well, this goes back to my example. That day, I painted a view from the cliffside, and but while I was there's my fellow artist painting, and so I made some sketches there and took some pictures, and then that became. That became that piece. And I think it's called John Park painting or something. Well, John Park is a fellow painter. He's a fellow who I've been painting with outside for a while.
Not the location Park.
No, Park. His name is Park. Right.
Okay. Thank you, by the way, for not making all of your human figures in your paintings isolated and separated from any other human figure. That I love Hopper. I'm a good Nyacker. I grew up here. Hopper is one of my absolute favorites, but boy, are his paintings depressing at times because there's such a disconnect between any of the human elements in any of the painting. You can have 2 people in one of his paintings and they are not connecting. Your people don't seem to have that issue.
Well, I have to tell you, some years ago, I had been working, I started painting, and I painted some kind of totally depressing thing with like people incinerated by nuclear bombs and all kinds of things. And a friend looked at it and said, "Wow, that's really deep." And I kind of thought about it. I said, like, yeah, like who needs that crap? People need to be happy. I don't want to have that impact. Francis Bacon, I appreciate his work, but I don't emulate him. So thank you.
Good. I mean, yes, we all need a Guernica every once in a while, but we don't need a Guernica all the time. So looks like Betsy Francofini is here. Hello, Betsy. You're viewing paintings on the iPod Rockefeller Gallery. Okay, we'll get to questions from everybody else as soon as I finish off here. We have Carol coming up. Carol, I know you were in the waiting room. Are you here? Unmute yourself. She was in the waiting room.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you go. Thank you. Very good to see you.
You
I
too.
love your vibrant colors. You were the only artist working in acrylic that's in this
Really?
show. Yes, which I found unusual as well. I kept going, there's got to be somebody else here. And nope, you were the only one. A place I love to look at. I absolutely love this piece. And you've got this great cliffside. Your work has a certain amount of geometry to it. From my perspective, they're bold colors in sort of geometric shapes that are also realistic shapes. But I'm never going to miss that there's a rectangle directly behind you, that there is the cliffs in that one are an isosceles triangle. It's all very much makes an immediate impact on the viewer between the color and the bold shapes. Talk to me a little about your process.
I do simplify the landscape into forms for sure, because I'm not very attached to being realistic in my presentation. What I really want is for the viewer to feel that sort of sense of awe and wonder and joy that I feel when I'm looking at the landscape. And those paintings also are done in the studio, but just like I think it was down that I also paint in plein air and then bring that back to the studio. Sometimes I look at them, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I look
Mm-hmm.
at the photographs, sometimes I don't. I've been looking at the Palisades my entire life. And in fact, when I was a child, there was so much industry down by the river that I would walk uphill backwards to elementary school so I could catch a short little glimpse of the Palisades on my way to school. I was late all the time.
I take it you were on the Bronx, Manhattan, down
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
side,
yeah, yeah,
looking at us, as it were.
yeah,
You had the better view in many
yeah, I'm
cases.
sorry.
Um, it, but the Palisades are obviously very much part of you, because you're represent. I'm looking at one right behind you right now that
Yeah,
isn't in the show, and I love this one too because
thank
the
you.
Palisades to me have always had a huge heart connection. And gosh, when I hear some of the plans that they had, that they were going to paint advertising on the sides of the Palisades and
Mind
everything,
blowing.
absolutely. So you grew up in this area then,
Yeah.
urban?
No, I grew up in Westchester, but there was a lot of industry by the river up and down the Hudson. And
Oh, trust me, people in Nyack do not remember that there used to be big oil tanks down by the water directly
oh my
below where
God.
I live right now. And newer people to Nyack are like, oh, it's always been this way. I'm like, no, it was not this way. We are lucky
No,
that it's this way now. But
it's a miracle actually that the industry I take the train into the city. I teach art in Chinatown. And the only way I could do that actually is because I ride the Hudson Line, and
mhm,
I will ride the Hudson Line for pleasure and joy all the way up to Poughkeepsie from time to time, just so
witnessed,
that I can
I've
see
done
the
it.
landscape. But yeah, this is a precious time where few villages still have the open, non-industrial waterfront available. Dobbs Ferry and Hastings, two opposite situations. Dobbs Ferry has been fortunate enough to own the land and make a very beautiful park, and Hastings has this Superfund site that's privately owned, and we're probably going to lose that view at some point. It's unimaginable, but so I think part of what I'm trying to do when I'm painting and I paint the Hudson a lot, all the way, as I was saying. I mean, I've gone as far as Hudson so far in search of beauty on the river, but I think part of what I'm trying to do is bring it to the forefront of people's minds, not through literal translation, but through the emotional translation of the using vibrant colors and simplified forms and trying to make it a little more accessible to people and really put them in that place and share a moment in that beauty with them and try to point out the importance of this. I mean, when you think about the Hudson River, you're from around this area, you know that back, I don't want to say the decade, but a lot of
It's
decades
okay. I was
ago,
born in the
it
very early
was
60s.
it was horrible.
It
I mean,
was.
there were still people swimming in it. I don't know why, but it was disgusting. And now it's beautiful and it's clean. And I mean, just phenomenal. I mean, the bald eagle was going extinct, and now they're back.
Our
We can
national
watch
symbol.
them. It's
Right.
phenomenal.
As someone like me who grew up and has had the river as a presence in their life, I keep pointing behind me because if I opened that curtain, you'd get a 180 of the river, but it would reflect back. Um, do you sometimes feel that you must be absolutely aware and conscious of the river because otherwise it fades into your everyday background? There are times when I think to myself, I haven't looked at my 180-degree river view from my terrace for 4 or 5 days in a row without, how do I, and anytime my family comes over, they're all out on my terrace, even if it's Christmas time, because they just want to look at the river. Do you find that sometimes, unless you force yourself to be aware, it can slip into the background? No?
It's always on my
Good for
mind.
you.
I mean, even when I'm not in this area, when I'm painting in Mexico or any other state, I'm still thinking about the Hudson River. I carry it with me. I worry about that actually. Could I actually move someplace else and be satisfied? When I
You
was a
can't.
child,
I
my
did it.
dad took us out to the Mississippi to see that mighty Mississippi. And I got there. I shouldn't say this out loud. I apologize if this is offensive. I got there and I'm
Please.
like,
I said that
so
about the
yeah, what?
Ohio.
What are
This
we
is a
looking
river?
at? We traveled all this way? What? Because in my strong opinion, and I'm inspired by nature wherever I am, and I could say more about that, but the Hudson is just a grand, mighty thing of beauty, and the Palisades are a bonus, and the hills and landscape around it, the marshes, I'm very drawn to the marshes. Um, just there's no aspect of the river that I can imagine that I can't be drawn to.
I even like the urban views. I
Yeah,
can get into the beautiful Hudson with a structure above it, a bridge, or something on the shore, the train tracks on the shore. See, I look
yeah,
over at Westchester, and I see the trains go by every 15 minutes, and
yeah,
hear them at night. And when I'm away, there's something wrong. The Hudson does get into your blood.
yeah, it
Um,
really does. And so I have, excuse me, people that I went to school with who have purchased or have an interest in my work because even though they're not living in this area anymore, they still have a strong attachment to the Hudson. And, and earlier today I was just thinking about it, how I have a painting, it's called After Image of the View from the Train. I recently posted it, but it looks just like a totally abstract Hudson River and sky with the Palisades. It only brings the effect or the memory of it because it's based solely on memory. And I guess a lot of my work really is sort of that impression, that mind's eye view of what I've been looking at and memorizing all these years.
Carol, I think we're kindred spirits in a certain way, and I thank you very much for being with us tonight. If we could turn the all the artists unmute so that we can have a little bit of a chat, and also there were a couple of questions. So could I ask the moderator to let us know what those are, because I am terrible at trying to bring them up myself. I'm not all that great with some of the technology. So if we could have a couple of those questions, I think Betsy Francofini had one of them, and an artist in her own right, beautiful photographer. Any questions?
We just
Here
had
we
one
go.
question. The question was for the artists who have day jobs, how do they find time to create?
You just have to force yourself to go to the studio or to have your work set up someplace so that you can go to it at all times, even if it's a portable studio in a bag, which is what I used to do. I used to paint while my son played soccer. I'd bring my bag, I'd sit by the goal, I would paint. His coach was really happy because I wasn't a screaming parent. And, everybody happy. Or at night during night training, I would sit under the light with the moonroof open and paint. It's got to be a habit you build.
I
Anybody
would,
else want to bring in? Go ahead.
yeah, I would second what she just said, in that you have to just build it into your your daily routine. I don't have a day job. I am fully independent. But I do have to work. But so my thing about it is that I find time to do it because I love it so much that I can't not do it. And I have a restoration business. I do a lot of furniture restoration and interiors, etc. And I schedule my time in such a way that so if I show up at a job site, I'm there for maybe from 10 o'clock until 3 or 4 o'clock. I don't want to work in the field for more than 4 or 5 hours at a stretch. And then I come back to the studio. And then in the evening, when the phones stop ringing, I find a respite in painting. And it's sort of like a mini vacation every time I do it. And it's just how I kind of block out the rest of the world and the troubles of the day, and find peace and find tranquility in it. And it's like it's like lifeblood. I can't do without it, really.
I'll chime in and say that I admire what both of you just said. I feel like I'm still trying to get to a point where I can be as more productive. I don't have a full-time day job at the moment, but have in when I have had one, I've gone through phases where most of my painting happened when I went on vacation. And a lot of that was because it wasn't just a finding time to do it, but it was finding time to get into the mood or, to sort of transition from the headspace of my analytical day job to, the more creative space of painting. And since, recently I've found that instead of needing to detach from my entire routine to find that inspiration and get in the mood, so to speak, I actually find now that one thing that I can do to help get myself into that mood is to do the chore involved. There's a lot of busy work involved with making art. You have to prep canvases, you have to stretch canvases, and in caustics, you have to do everything that Richard was describing. And my first step if I'm having trouble finding myself like getting there, I start with that, right? I just start with the busy work, even just moving stuff around, clearing the studio, cleaning it, and getting ready for the next piece. And by doing that, it actually helps transition into the mode of creating.
Anybody else want to chime in on that? I am
I
always, go ahead.
I just wanted to concur with what everyone has just said. It's I don't work full time anymore. It depends on the time of year when my schedule is flexible if I'm not busy teaching medical students. But um, I find the minute I get home, aside from opening the mail, doing other chores, I cannot wait to get into the studio. And what I do routinely is I turn everything on. In caustic, it requires lots of heat, so there's a lot of electricity gets drawn to enable me to work with the medium. I turn it on, and it takes a good hour to an hour and a half for things to be ready. I can't wait to turn the button on, and I do that with great pleasure.
Dan?
Yeah, I'm blessed to not have a day job, but the journey for me was painting was always my first love, and I had this for many years. I had an all-absorbing career. I had for 18 years I had like 600 people working under me, and it was like an 80-hour-a-week job. And the painting became something. It was like finding my real identity again. And so that I became more and more drawn to it. And then later in my working life, I left a big job, took a huge cut in pay, and had a much smaller job to make more time for painting. And then, of course, the real happy time was a couple of years ago when I stopped working altogether at anything other than painting. So painting is just something. I think you find the motivation for it because if you feel that's who you are, then you're drawn to be that person. And I think that was a motivation for me. And as the other speakers have said, it's you kind of, when that's how you feel about it, then you sort of make the time for it. I think some of the recommendations too is if you can turn it into something that's convenient, where you can just pick it up, then it becomes a lot easier. If it's a whole huge process, um, I think it would be hard for me to have gotten back into it and actually plein air, because plein air is sort of like going camping. You have to pack everything up.
Yeah.
But other kinds of forms, anybody who really doesn't have the time, something you can do is I find figure drawing is really easy. You have all your stuff, you have your books, you're with a bunch of people. It's structured, and it sort of cuts the time out for you. So I mean, anybody who is trying to find their way back into it, I'd recommend something like that. Do that, and then start working on your own work.
Question for all of you. Oh, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
No, I was just going to chime in to what Dan was saying, and it really is about, having the setup already in place. So my suggestion to those that are aching to do it but never find the time or whatever is, I remember starting very small, 6 by 6 inch squares, and doing landscapes in triptych form or diptych form. And then it just kind of grew out of that into much, much larger pieces. But if you start small, and satisfy yourself with a small palette and a small area of a bedroom, living room, or wherever. I mean, I have my own private studio now, and I couldn't do without it. But at the time when I started back up after raising kids, it was 6 inch squares, and it's grown into a much bigger thing than that at this point. But yeah, that's what I wanted to add to that conversation.
Cool.
Well, and to that end, I would say to carry it with you. I often carry 12 by 12 paper and a watercolor set pencils with me in my work bag. I've been known to carry postcard size watercolor paper too. I mean, if you can keep it with you, you can have water pens or a water bottle as your water source. It's very
Yeah.
portable and lightweight.
And easy.
Yeah, I concur with that. I'm out of town right now and I have my go bag. It's a tote with a tripod chair, an easel, my gouache kit, and paper and a paper book,
Yeah.
which is great. I can do it in the airport. I can do it on a trail, up a mountain, right? Anywhere.
I'll
So
just
even
chime in. Oh, I'll just
go
chime
ahead.
in really fast and just I agree with a lot of what everybody else is saying, how you have to make the time. It's a part of your practice. But when I travel, I always bring a glue stick, um, some pens, different things. I have little books that I'll collage into, and I'll sit on an airplane and collage. And it's just the nicest feeling in the world. Everybody's watching screen time, but I'm working, and I just find that downtime really important, and it helps me to really focus.
I think one of the key takeaways that I am getting from all of you is that once an artist, always an artist. Since you are an artist all of the time, whether you're teaching your medical students, whether you're helping your wife with her real estate, hello, Dan Lukens, whether you're doing any of the other stuff, you're still always an artist at heart. And therefore, to have your tools with you all the time means that that part of you can come out at any time when something strikes you. I think that's a good thing for a lot of people to remember about any of their passions.
Yeah,
Very insightful. Go ahead,
yeah.
sorry.
I was just going to say that if somebody were to ask me, what do you do? It's not what I do, it's who I am. And then again, if somebody were to say, well, have you been an artist all your life? And I will simply say, not yet.
I like that. That's also very, very much seeing the water half full rather than half empty. And thank you for the compliment, Mary Lukens. I appreciate that. Dan's wife and I used to work together. Just an FYI, a little privacy thing there. One of the most wonderful people out there. The Lukens family are good eggs. Artists, thank you so much being with us this evening. Thank you so much for your work. You don't know how long I was at the gallery today by myself, because I really was taken with so many of the things. Lisa D'Amico is an exceptional curator. She picks some wonderful pieces that very much sort of speak to who the artist that created them is. And having spoken to all of you, I even think more highly of Lisa because, yes, they very much evoked the people who were talking to me this evening. Excellent work. This show is on through April. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, please go up and see it. For those of us on our side of the river in Nyack, it took me 22 minutes to get there. It's very close. And anybody on the Westchester side, of course, it's even closer, unless you're way, way up there in the corner over by Connecticut. But seriously, it is worth the time to go there. It is a beautiful little gallery. And the show is very much what I think many of us need right now as we transition from a long winter into what will hopefully be a lovely spring. And for everyone involved, I would like to say thank you and good night, and hope to see you again at another Artist Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good night,
very
everybody.
much. Have a good night.
And don't
Yeah.
forget to
Thanks, John.
visit the gallery exhibit and the website. Thank you for joining us, everyone.